Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Tayo po nasa isang edisyon na naman ng ating Wednesday Roundtable at Lido. Everybody's talking about the possibility of a joint exploration of resources within the South China Sea, or what we call West Philippine Sea. Today we have Dr. Clarita, a political science expert and former president of the National Defense College of the Philippines. Attorney Batongbacal is the director of the UP Institute of Maritime Affairs and Law of the Sea. Former Ambassador Jose Lozada, who spent the best years of his life until today with Foreign Affairs, and Dr. Gabriel Pamintuan Jr., who comes from the Department of Mining, Metallurgical, and Materials Engineering of the University of the Philippines. Before we go any further, siguro mabuting simulan natin doon sa ano bang meron dyan sa West Philippine Sea o South China Sea. Si Dr. Pamintuan, medyo kakaiba ito sapagkat yung kanya pong BS mining, yung kanyang Masters Petroleum Engineering, at ngayon yung PhD niya nakatatapos lang on environment. So, mabigat ito. Siya po yung project manager ng PNOC, Exploration Corporation, doon sa Malampaya. So, we'd like to find out from him, anong meron doon sa Malampaya?
This West Philippine Sea, or exactly west of Palawan. Most of our oil discoveries were there, yung mga nag-produce. Pati nung early or late 90s hanggang ito nga lumabas yung Malampaya in the early 2000. Because west of Palawan is medyo stable na yung geology dyan, so nagkakaroon ng build-up yung mga deposits ng oil and gas. So we have to explore more. In fact, we're trying to we're looking for the next Malampaya kasi world class yung size ng Malampaya. No? So the entire west of the Philippines, probably hanggang taas, no? May potential yan for oil and gas. In fact, may nakita na nga tayo oil and gas yan sa west of Palawan. And then there's another thing, I think nung May lumabas na biglang sinabi ng China and Japan, meron kaming na-produce na combustible ice. So ito yung hydrates na tinatawag. Actually, this is natural gas that is trapped in ice. So under a certain pressure temperature, yung gas na nag-escape from the bottom of the sea gets trapped in water. Pero at a certain temperature, nag-freeze yung tubig. So kung barena mo to or nakuha mo to under the sea or inside the sea, sa seabed mismo, because these are at depths like up to 300 meters deep na seabed, but the water can be any depth hanggang 1 kilometer deep. Kunin mo yung yelo na yon, sindihan mo liliyab. Because the methane that is trapped there will, of course, the unang touch ng flame mo, tutunawin niya yung first part ng ice, mag-escape na yung natural gas. So tuloy-tuloy na lumiliyab yung yellow. So
okay.
That's another potential, yung hydrates. But oil and gas, we know that there's oil and gas west of Palawan. So matter of like looking for more of
Okay. Yung Malampaya, gano ang panahon nitong itatagal pa para pakinabangan natin?
Okay, we started Malampaya 2001, GMA yan, around October na. And the initial estimate was like 25 years. But later on, we found out na yung Malampaya deposit, which is or yung Camago deposit, which is very close to Malampaya. Nung una, sabi nila, baka may connection or baka mag-feed yung Camago sa Malampaya. So at the start of the operation, because ako yung nag-monitor ng production ng Malampaya, because I was the point person, actual project engineer ako ng PNOC, together with yung, of course, we know it's Shell and Chevron. So parang, after 6 months, parang tumaas pa yung pressure. So the unang suspecha ko doon was, baka nga pumasok na yung Camago. So until 2013, like 11 years after yung unang suspicion na yun, kinonfirm ng Shell that Camago indeed is feeding Malampaya. So na-extend by 33% yung life ng Malampaya project. So maybe beyond 2030.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a viable option talaga, ha? Yung natural gas dyan. It's
Yeah,
worth investing.
In
kung saka-
fact, one-third of Luzon is Malampaya gas. Yung
Yung
load,
supply.
yes, yes,
Okay.
ng power.
Okay. Dr. Carlos, how do you look at this? Because masaya si Secretary Alan Cayetano, si Alan Peter Cayetano, nung magkaroon ng press conference with Minister Wang Yi sa Shangri-La at the Fort na magkakaroon nga ng ganito. Totally ka, biyaya ng Diyos yan. Pwede pakinabangan ng mga mamayan. How do you look at it?
Well, the devil really is the concept of jointness. Because if you operationalize it and one is boss and the other is just a follower, then that is not joint. So I think we have to be smart about it, smart, intelligent. And since this is within our waters, then we should know what to do. So let us not scratch our heads again and say sorry and mea culpa, because, like the Chinese, we can also be as tuso as they are. Of course, we can use another better word maybe. But yes, this is
Astute,
our
probably?
tuso. I cannot think of the English word there. Shrewd, something like that, no? Bad word, really. But yes, this is our energy security, maybe, or also our food security. And while we're moving towards renewables, I think natural gas, I don't know, Gabi, if you can correct me here, is not as pollutant as, the other sources of
Called
energy.
cleaner.
As cleaner, yeah. So let's pay attention to the operational definition of joint.
Okay. Attorney J. Batongbacal, Senior Associate Justice Carpio, was quoted as saying the project, if and when such would come to reality, would violate the Constitution. How do you look at it?
Well, kasi nga, I think Justice Carpio is looking at it from the legal perspective talaga, because if you look at the Constitution and the provisions on exploitation of natural resources, it does not provide for state-to-state na agreements for exploitation resources. What it considers is only the state, meaning the Philippines, and a private company, no? At least 60% Philippine-owned pa nga, no? So in that sense, the Constitution does not expressly allow for exploitation of natural resources with another state, no? It has to be through a private company. That being said, though, yung the Constitution, by not stating, by not mentioning state-to-state agreements, it could be argued that that also means that it is not prohibited, no? But the fact of the matter is the implementing laws and regulations on petroleum development in the Philippines do not consider as partners other states. Again, it's just like the Constitution, it only has presumed that to take place with private companies. So in that sense, it's not provided for by the law. You need amending legislation and probably a special treaty in order for that to take place legally within the bounds of the Constitution.
I see. Ambassador Lozada, today, the China and Philippines relations is described as, nasa golden age, so to speak, with the assumption of President Duterte. How do you look at this joint partnership, especially from a diplomatic point of view?
Well, I agree with what Attorney J and Claire said. Fully agree with it, because it's really high time that we have to look at other alternatives in order for our country to prosper. Now, with the present relations between China and the Philippines at its best, I think that we have to be, I don't know what's the right word also here, wiser enough to deal with the Chinese and be able to get what we want. With regards to the joint venture or joint exploration, I think that we need to amend the economic portion of the Constitution here, because legislation, as I'm sure, cannot amend the Constitution. although the provisions in the Constitution is quite vague also when it comes to agreement on this. The problem here is we have just came out from our winning streak from that ruling in The Hague, and the Chinese has not forgiven us for that. So we have to, I thought, I was talking to Dr. Pamintuan earlier. I said, I don't know, but I'm quite interested in the Philippine rice or Benham rice. Maybe we can quietly talk to the Chinese to have some deals, like okay, give us Scarborough. We allow you to go to some areas in Philippine rice, and then quietly we can ask the Chinese to not to press so much on the sovereignty issues.
Okay. Dr. Carlos, you're familiar with the agreement between India and Vietnam. They identified blocks where they will develop and explore. Do you think such would be okay in the Philippines?
Well, that's one model because joint development can have many emanations. And I was thinking if we can finesse what joint development looks like in terms of like a platform for decision making for X number of parties, not just limited to the two countries. This can also extend to the artificial islands, which for most purposes are turning into military garrisons. Why? Joint development, we're saying, is let's turn these military garrisons into research stations so that, since Xi Jinping is going to meet with People's Congress at this time, and he keeps on talking about peaceful means with the neighbors. So let him put meat on what he's talking about. It's not just, beautiful words. These military garrisons, which can be takeoff points for missiles or whatever, make them a la Antarctica research stations. So that means our scientists will jointly develop, study what is going on, the fish, the sea plants, etc. And then whatever it is, the fish that you get there, these are resources, food security for everybody, not just for China. Whatever it is that you get there, as Gabi said, natural gas or minerals, let us share them. And let us go back to where China should no longer style itself as the middle of everybody else, because China is threatening to be a superpower if it's not yet a superpower in many ways. So, and we are hoping that China will style itself in a different way than other superpowers, and let's not name them anymore. And so, China, we're banking on you. Please behave in a different way.
Okay. Attorney Batongbacal, an agreement was forged between Japan and China in 2008 for an exploration agreement somewhere in East China Sea. But NHK reported earlier today, or was it 2 days ago, that Japan is concerned because China sent a drilling ship on the Chinese side of the median line. Do you foresee conflict, or would such a thing happen in the Philippines? Should we opt to come up with an agreement with China?
Well, bigyan mo natin yung context, no? The China-Japan agreement on joint exploration in that area, in the first place, it was very generally worded, no? So they called it a consensus statement. And there were varied interpretations. No? Iba yung interpretation in China, iba yung interpretation in Japan on what was actually the consensus. Now,
But they
because
agreed to disagree. No?
yeah, but that the original idea was that would lead to a more kumbaga peaceful and cordial relationship between the two. But in the end, what happened was that they were not able to come up with any particular jointly explored or developed area, and they just stuck to each other's side of the median line, yung dividing line between the two countries. Now, what Japan is concerned about now is that China's activities on the other side are of such a scale and of such proximity to the median land that they might actually already be encroaching onto their side of the resources. Kasi nowadays the petroleum technology has developed such that you can actually drill sideways. It's no
Yes.
longer just up and down, but sideways, and therefore you can possibly
Siphon,
take
whatever
siphon
resources.
off resources from the other side, no? Even though it's on your side of the median line. So may ganung issue yon, no? May ganung perspective. And when it comes to petroleum resources, these resources move, di ba? So that's why may ganung concern. And then on top of that, you have to factor in nga yung general state of relations between China and Japan at present. No? It's not exactly on very good terms, although medyo stable and so far medyo nag-quiet down. No? So yung ganung what is happening basically is that Japan sees China's activities as another way of exerting pressure on them, and that's why they're pushing back. No? So that kind of scenario is easy also to see as possible if we have a joint exploration or development agreement with China. No? So like what happened with the GMSU some years back, di ba? Once the GMSU was in place, China actually tried to pressure the Philippines to cancel the GSEC 101, what is now Service Contract 72 over Reed Bank. No? So even though they had not yet done anything, no, there was that pressure using the JMSU agreement as a kind of leverage or entry point. Okay. So similar kinds of situations will always be possible in the future.
I see. Yes, please.
Sir, clarification lang yung sinabi niyo po kanina yung sa joint exploration. Kailangan po ba i-amend yung Constitution?
Ang sinabi ko kanina, the Constitution right now only considers exploration with private companies. It does not at all mention exploration with other states. No? But there's also that other rule of interpretation that what is not expressly prohibited is permitted. No? So merong, kumbaga may ambiguity. So if you want to be sure, no, that to be able to carry out any joint exploration with another country, then it should at minimum be based on a treaty or an agreement, no, with that other country, because that will then place the activity on that agreement will then be on the same level as a law, as an implementing legislation. So that's why the JMSU in 2005 merong it's considered as an international agreement that will cover yung ambiguity,
So,
bale.
hindi na po ba kailangan ng parang may third party
Third party for what?
between China and Philippines na parang mga masiwa, di ba? Kasi parang joint exploration.
Wala. Ano yan? At the level of say a treaty or agreement for exploration, hindi pa kailangan yon because this can be purely a bilateral arrangement. But in implementation, that's probably when you can consider the existence of a third party like a government-owned or controlled corporation, a national oil company, or an oil company created by the two countries specifically for that purpose.
Sir, last question lang. Ngayong ASEAN Summit po ba, is it healthy na i-discuss ni President Duterte or ni Secretary Cayetano sa ASEAN countries yung pong issue ngayon sa South China Sea?
Not likely, given previous experience the past year, they have not really raised it, di ba? And at best, the only thing apparently on ASEAN's agenda under our chairmanship that has any relevance to the South China Sea is the Framework Code of Conduct. So I don't see any additional agenda items, no? Especially given how the government has avoided any kind of so-called provocative actions or statements.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, Professor Carlos, yung sa Japan at sa China, meron silang median line. Hindi ba mas complicated tayo because we have overlapping claims in the South China Sea? Please?
Certainly, overlaps are really things which are never resolved. That is the reason why we have to change the framework of thinking and orientation about these things. And as we move into regional integration, we are moving towards a borderless world. the Belt and Road Initiative of China is moving towards a borderless world. And let us ride on that train. And since China has already taken that initiative and now we are part of the map, before, in the previous administration, we were not part of that map, and we pointed that out. He said, hey, where are we? Where's the Philippines? It's just bobbing up and down in the Pacific Ocean. And it was not part of the map. We suddenly became part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Let us ride on that train, because that train will carry our mangoes, pineapple, and whatever minerals towards the region and elsewhere, including China. And China can also, literally use the same for exchange of goods, services, and people, and military for that matter. Of course, if you have a sinister mind, you'll say it will also carry the military. But yes, everyone wants to be wealthy, so let's not have sinister minds, and let's just keep on pounding on the Chinese that, no, you cannot own the oceans because they are owned by mankind. And you'd be surprised, Melo, once upon a time, the Chinese did not even want to talk about the South China Sea. I think I mentioned in this same forum that they stopped me from presenting a paper in Tokyo. But now, they're even talking about the framework for the code of conduct later on that will be followed. So, just keep on pounding, and soon, katigasan ng ulo na yan. And we will what is the term? Outlast the patience of the Chinese. If they're patient, we will also be patient. That's how we play this game, no?
Uh-huh.
So, you said kanina, June, let us not really outsmart them, but let us be smart. Let us be shrewd. I use the term tuso because I cannot think of, it's really the positive tuso, which means, wag ka nang nagpapaano dyan, tapos hinahawakan ka na nga sa ilong ng China. You remember yung sinasabi mo yung JS, yung joint exploration? Storya nun, because I know Harry Roque came to my house to discuss that, Melo. That was a secret agreement. Okay? Nandun sa sikreto nila, na tunugan ng Vietnam. You know what happened? Sinama nila yung Vietnam. Of course, nagtapos na yun but you know who did all the exploration? China. Because they had the technology to do it. Sunod-sunod lang tayo. This is what I mean about being bobo and about these things. Huwag tayo magburara. We have brilliant lawyers like this one to my left, J. Batongbacal. For God's sake, please read the lines and read between the lines, no?
Mm-hmm.
And if the Chinese can be smart, we can be smarter.
Okay. Pero yung resources, pag sinabi nyo kasi katulad nung sa Malampaya, pwedeng kumuha ng resource doon sa katabi, like what you mentioned a while ago. What's the name of this resource?
The hydrates.
Kamago.
Kamago.
Yeah?
Yeah,
So,
if
pwedeng pumasok yun doon sa disputed area, right?
Pwede. And then
Pwede.
yung nabanggit kanina ni Atty. was yung directional drilling. I can drill like 10 kilometers and then I can extract oil from that far.
The other side.
Yung across the boundary.
We have the technology. Can we do it?
It's being done.
It's being done.
Yung directional drilling ang tawag dyan.
Sa geothermal, ginagawa nila yun
Yes, and of course oil and gas also. Kasi in fact, Shell wanted to test that bridge between Camago and Malampaya like at the start of the project, but I don't know if that happened. Pero based on yung production data kasi, sinasabi na nag-feed yung Camago.
Mm-hmm.
So even yung natural ko na, we're extracting gas from here, ito connected, so kukuha siya ng gas doon or magbibigay ito ng gas.
Aside from natural gas, may petroleum ba kayo nakita?
Natural gas is part of petroleum kasi petroleum is oil and gas. So there's oil. In fact, the bottom of Malampaya has a layer of oil, like 65 meters thick. The gas is 650 meters thick. So pagkaubos ng gas, we can get the oil also.
Really?
Meron akong tanong kay Gabs,
Please.
Gabi, remember we're moving towards renewables. It's being subsidized by the government. And ngayong nakadapa yung oil, di ba? Parang less than $50 ngayon. Do you see a lessening of investment towards extraction ng oil and even natural gas?
There's still a lot of oil and gas, actually. And then, I haven't mentioned about coal even. Kasi marami pang coal. So we're talking about cleaner dapat or renewables. But in terms of cost, yung pinakamababa ngayon is coal.
Extraction.
Yes. Actually, nuclear can be cheaper if not for the cost of assuring safety. Because there are accidents, so to assure that medyo mahal. Design and all of the safeguards that you put in there. Pero as of now, coal is the cheapest, and then maybe oil, then later on gas. So meron pa, yung hydrates na sinasabi natin, there's a lot more hydrates than we have natural gas. So,
Meron, ha?
Yes.
May potential.
Yes.
Okay. Toby?
Yeah, for Dr. Carlos, most recent item that I picked up from China's direction in the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, is that they're actually open to discussing it. You mentioned, you tapped on it already earlier, is that China is actually open to discussing a framework already for
Code of conduct.
Code of conduct, which actually shows how very savvy they are in terms of pushing this particular code. For the past 10-15 years, they've been very reticent, very silent about that getting into that mode. But the impression is that they're now ready to discuss, to go on this track of discussions. It's because they've already done what it is they want to do. They've already put in place whatever it is they want to put in place in the West,
Okay, so they've already built the islands.
They already have the islands, and as you also mentioned, they can convert it to either research, civilian, or it's a multi-use facility, military to research.
Okay.
Yeah, in the course of things, natural course of things, when you're selling something to somebody, you have to befriend that person or that state. They're selling trains. Japan is competing. Germany is competing. France is also offering us. They'd better be friendly to us. And I think China knows that. So this time, economics will trump politics. Okay, I read an interview of, what's his name, Chito, Ambassador Chito, Santa Romana.
Yeah, Chida.
Kasi Ambassador June mentioned the arbitral tribunal ruling. He said, things we're quarreling about, put it in the margins. Things we have, we can talk friendly relations with, we're not quarreling about, let's put it in the mainstream. In political science, we call it low politics and high politics. High politics is arbitral tribunal. We know it's there. Panalo na tayo doon. Low politics is selling mangoes, pineapple, natural rubber. So, we're also smart. And Chito is smart also, by the way. So, keep silent. Pinapag-awayan natin eh. Put it in the margins muna. No? And to wait till the Chinese also change their minds and their orientations. You'd be surprised. The millennials are thinking differently from the Politburo. And let us bank on the millennials. The young people are the harbingers of change. No? And the demographics of China is moving towards that direction. Hintayin na lang natin yung mga deep-seated biases na they have not discovered the fountain of youth, so I suppose mamamatay din sila. No? But, yeah, what can you do?
Yeah. Okay. Would you care to add to the discussion?
Yes, Toby, with regards to the code of conduct, basically, it's already a done deal. The only problem that we are facing right now, it's not really a problem the way I see it, is the language, the choice of words that we're going to use. And this is exactly the main agenda of this SOM meeting is going on now. They have to look at the draft, look at the right words, the language to be used, because China has publicly already agreed in the last summit that they are willing to agree with us on the code of conduct if the language are done rightly.
Yeah, but don't you see spoilers in the sidelines who would not want to see peace in the region?
The way I see it, as far as ASEAN 10, I don't think there is anybody who will spoil that code of conduct. There are certain political issues that may spoil some of the problems that we will take up in the meetings, but they are not as important as really going through seriously with the code of conduct that will be agreed upon by the 10 plus China. And the most important thing also is not only China should agree to it, but also we should look at how Japan, Korea, and the US would look at this code of conduct because they are also a party to all of this.
Precisely.
And I think the most important thing is North Korea is trying to flex its muscles also to get into the picture.
Oh, the little boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Well, there are certain actors which we have not mentioned here. In our recent visit to Moscow, Russia also articulated to us that it is also pivoting to Asia, Southeast Asia to be precise. But it's being quiet about it, not trumpeting it about like the US. What does this mean? India is also an actor to consider. So we like this because that means it is not only China, which is the main and the pivotal actor in the region. And we like that India even wants to train with us. Russia already declared through King Soreta, that brilliant ambassador in Moscow, that they want to train with us. What does it mean? Right now, we only have a visiting forces IRR, meaning how do Americans conduct themselves here when they train with us. Australia, wala pang IRR yung kanilang status of forces agreement. Japan wants to train with us. Vietnam wants to train with us. Yes, for God's sake, let us all have a collective disaster management training program. And this is how to trump China's whatever designs it might have. Is China even wants to train with us, by the way. And in the interviews we did while we were at the Visiting Forces Commission, do you know that the Americans and the Filipino military, they also want to train with China? Except that that will not be allowed yet because the VFA is only talking of US and the SOFA is only talking of Australia. So siguro eventually, we would have SOFAs with everybody. And it's not about training to fight together, interoperability. It is training to fight climate change.
Really? Okay. Attorney Batongbacal, would you be familiar with other agreements across the globe na naging matagumpay? Yung mga joint exploration na yan, yung mga pagtutulungan na walang pagdududa, walang dugasan, at iba pa.
There are quite a number of experiences already on joint development and joint exploration. So within the region, you have joint development arrangements between Malaysia and Thailand. There is an area for joint exploration between Malaysia and Vietnam. There are arrangements between Australia and Indonesia and East Timor. No? So, meron na mga, and then in Northeast Asia, yun nga, you have Korea, China, Japan, they have various arrangements, even Japan and Taiwan.
Okay.
Varied degrees of success. Merong mga hindi talaga nag-take off. Merong mga nag-take off.
Okay.
Particularly, I think Malaysia, Thailand is
Okay.
working.
All right. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add something. Kasi like last year, Japan was trying to get permission from the Philippines. Although sa NIGS muna sila nag-present ng like exploration, joint exploration. And then I think this year South Korea was also trying to like make a proposal for a joint, but I don't know anong
Is this
status.
like a country or is it a private sector?
Hindi ko po alam because
So
Yeah.
it will be confronted with the same challenge that Jay identified.
yeah, and then I remember when I was with PNOC with the Malampaya project back in, I don't know if it's 2003 or 2004, when Ed Manyalak was with DOE, because there was a proposal to invite Vietnam and China for a joint exploration. I don't know if this is the 2005. Attorney Jay.
Gabi, ano yung sinasabi ni Pangilinan na...
Pakilapit lang po ng microphone.
Ay,
Yan,
sorry.
yan, yan.
What is it that MV Pangilinan was proposing to have a parang joint venture with China? Do you know anything about that?
I think the entity there
Pakilapit
is...
lang po ng microphone. Yan.
Sorry, the entity there is Sinok. I think it is their
Northern
national...
Palawan, right?
Maybe the Northwest Palawan, because all of our oil and gas finds are there. Mga current and past na oil and gas
And there is
production.
really no problem with the area that Pangilinan is identifying because it's clearly Philippine side.
Philippine side, okay.
There's no overlapping claim there. I think what makes it difficult is because of the overlapping claims and the status of negotiations between countries. Other
Okay.
countries talagang wala problema eh. But in our case, we filed the case, we won it, China's want to.
Uh-huh.
And then nag-away muna tayo eh bago makipag
Bago magkasundo.
yeah.
Yes, Jay.
Yeah, just several points. Yung sa Japan and Korea expressing interest, yes, they have expressed interest in exploring Benham rice particularly. And the Philippines was the one that sort of opened up the discussion, no, by holding a conference about it beginning of last year. So both China and Korea, through their respective geoscience agencies, JAMSTEC on the part of Japan and a similar one in Korea, I forget the name, have expressed interest nga in doing that. Pero wala pa namang clear parang modalities how to do it. At this point, parang pwede parang gawin yon through joint scientific research arrangements. Okay, so that will still take some time. So it's not the same kind of activity as what we're contemplating with China right now, which is at the level of joint development of a particular resource. No? Now, on MVP naman, what he was talking about was basically their effort during the tail end of the Clinton administration, no, to convince CNOC to basically have a joint development of MVPs, yung Philex Service Contract 72, which is on Reed Bank. Pero those discussions fell apart, no, in the end. And then recently, under the third administration, basically MVP expressed the hope that those discussions could now progress. No? Pero since that statement late last year, we have not heard any news about it. Okay. In the meantime, now you have this Philippines-China parang the visit, the foreign ministers
Wang Yi's visit,
saying that they're now talking about it, no? And this does not appear to consider yung MVP initiative na yon. Okay, so siguro we can assume that it's starting from a clean slate right now.
From a clean slate.
Because on the other hand naman, Reed Bank, we have only one contract there, which is yung Philex Forum contract, SC72, which is on hold up to now. No? Siguro they're waiting for what the government will decide, because any prospects for joint development right now will most likely be on Reed Bank rather than anywhere else.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have a quick addition to that. Little known to us, because one of my neighbors is a marine scientist with our Marine Science Institute. There are already very robust cooperation among these rival claimants. And so what does this mean? This means that in the medium to long term, it is really the scientists who will be the frontliners for what the cooperation framework could look like. And it's not the politicians and the diplomats who will provide the answers, really. They will be swamped by the cooperation happening among scientists who do not talk about territoriality and sovereignty. So we call this the functional route, no, to cooperation. And we as academics, we are banking on that, Melo. That it is really the scientists who, because they are worshiping in the altar of science, which will provide the avenue for cooperation for all these things that divide us.
Yeah, but I have a question, because even when we agree to jointly explore the resources, do you see continuity? Because exploration doesn't, is never accomplished overnight. How long did it take you guys to know the viability of Malampaya?
Actually, it takes a while, or took a while for Malampaya. Kasi parang that was discovered parang almost late 90s na yan. And then,
And you started?
2001. But Oxy pa noon, before Shell came in, because Shell parang bought out Oxy there.
Yes.
And then there were seismic lines. Marami exploration yan eh.
How long did it take?
Not really sure, pero maybe 5 to 10 years, parang ganyan. Takes
Really?
a while, yes.
Discovery was 99.
In 99,
Late
yeah.
90s.
And then we put it into our system at what year?
Open 2000.
2001.
2001. Okay. So it's not a joke. Now,
Melo,
continuity.
quick interjection. No? Note, you are working with people, looking at maps together, learning together, sharing meanings. you are engendering goodwill. This is what we social scientists are banking on. While you're doing scientific studies, you are planting goodwill amongst yourselves so that later on, this will spill over into more sensitive issues. So you say, wag na natin pag-usapan sino may-ari niyan. Tayo na lang. And we are all Asians, by the way. Of course, that's not anything big, but yes, it is something big. Oh, so yes, again, to reiterate, it is the scientists which will be the harbinger of the model cooperative framework among these claimant countries.
Yes, but you will agree with me, Dr. Carlos, that it took them 10 years to put it into the system, and Mr. Duterte has 5 years until 2022. Do you see such a similarity or parallelism, or do they have the same mindset to pursue what Mr. Duterte will begin soon?
The PDP planning framework is 2040. I'm sure all of us will be dead in this room, except the young people there. Our planning horizon is far. 2040, we would like to be a developed economy. Wala nang poor. Wala nang 26 million. So, Duterte he knows what he's doing. He knows that these things will go beyond him. And the next president, the next leader after Duterte will just have to continue what had been started.
Do you share the same opinion, Ambassador?
We have no choice, I think. Yes. Yeah, because by the time all of these young people here will be around.
Including Jay.
Yeah, I think sa area ng energy, we're already projecting 25 years from now. So, medyo strategic dapat yung planning and
Okay,
thinking natin.
so dagdagan natin yung gulo. Dahilan sa meron kang West Philippine Sea, South China Sea. Anong laman ng Benham rice?
Yeah, could be similar kasi baka meron pang minerals dyan beyond energy resources.
Really?
Yeah.
But isn't it too deep?
Yung sinasabi ng agriculture ba na research team nila na pumunta doon, totoo ba yung data na binigay nila?
I haven't seen that report, but
Oceana yung gumawa nun eh. Oo, Oceana. Oo.
Sorry, one short in 25 years daw, the rice will appear. So, may plan ka nang nasa ilalim siya, in 25 years, nabasa ko sa yung parang ako kung saan ko siya nabasa.
Hindi ko kay Madam Oring yan, ha?
Hindi.
No.
Hindi kasi tinitignan nila siyempre maraming variables yon. Lalabas na siya. At siya ay kasing laki ng archipelago natin.
No. Wait. Sorry. No.
Mali?
Mali. Okay. Particularly if it's coming from the Secretary of Agriculture. Unfortunately, inaccurate yung information na nilalabas niya. Okay. Benham Rice is a plateau, an underwater plateau, 2.5 to 5 kilometers deep. It is not rising. No, it's called a rise simply because the rise is the underwater equivalent of a plateau. Okay. Only 17,000 hectares of that rise is relatively shallow, and by shallow we mean 150 feet deep. The rest of it is 2,500 meters deep or more. So it's not rising. It's not going to become new land. Okay.
I stand corrected.
When it comes to the resources there, what we're looking at is basically mineral and seabed resources. So in terms of energy, you're looking at possibility of caltrates. In terms of minerals, you're talking about a possibility of cobalt-rich crusts and polymetallic sulfides, all of which are located in very, very deep water. So the technology to commercially exploit that is still not yet mature. It's mostly experimental. So any benefit we can derive from that area is still several decades away, probably. No? In terms of petroleum, the PNOC exploration has already done some initial review of it. They do not see.
How big is it? Sabi mo mali na kasing laki
Yes,
ng archipelago.
the plateau itself, Benham Rice itself, the geological feature is somewhere in the vicinity of about 24 million hectares. Okay, that's east of Luzon, but it's underwater nga. Okay, and that's relatively parang almost arbitrary kasi it depends on what you consider to be still part of the rice. Okay, so that's all still very deep water. And the geology of the area is not conducive to petroleum reserves, petroleum gas traps in the same way as the West Philippine Sea is. Kaya yung energy resource is yung caltrates nga. But point to be emphasized, we do not know yet where these resources are, how much of it there is in that area, simply because we have not explored the area. Okay, so first step is still exploration, and that's still going to take a few more years.
Yeah, but wouldn't the Americans have an interest there because right across from the Pacific Ocean is their
Well,
their border?
yes, but it's also still part of the open ocean. So, in terms of level of interest, it's not as high as, say, South China Sea. Also, in terms of the activities in that area, it's relatively low compared to the sheltered area of the South China Sea.
Okay. Yung East Timor partnership with Australia, are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Meron bang kinikita yung East Timorese? O mas malaki kita siyempre ng Australians dahil sila yung nag-invest?
Well, what I know thus far is that it was skewed in favor of the Australians, mainly because the Timor-Lestes did not have the technology. Remember, they were such a new,
Country.
a new country. In fact, they are surviving only because of subsidies from wherever. Okay, but right now there are more and more nationalist people there who saw the skewness of the contract that they drew up, and I read somewhere that they are asking Australia to rethink the contract, to revisit the contract in terms of the sharing of the resources therefrom.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
please.
that's the yung Timor Gap Treaty, as they call it, which provided also for joint development of a certain area. Okay, the problem is, number one, that treaty was negotiated by the Indonesians, not the East Timorese. This was during the time that Indonesia took over East Timor. So now that East Timor is an independent nation, they're questioning the treaty because parang they see Australia as having been opportunistic in quickly negotiating the treaty with Indonesia. Now, second problem is that while in the implementation of the treaty, they found out that the reserves are not exactly in the joint development area na they identified for shared purposes, but a bit outside of it. So again, raising the question now of is it fair or is it equitable to East Timor? So because of that, East Timor has now tried to get Australia to renegotiate the treaty. And then they also started proceedings against Australia under UNCLOS, yung compulsory conciliation proceedings, again, to challenge the whole arrangement. No? That process is ongoing, and if at the end of that conciliation process, East Timor is not satisfied, then it's possible that they will bring Australia to a tribunal also, no? Another Annex 7 tribunal under UNCLOS. To achieve that objective now of eventually causing Australia to renegotiate the whole arrangement.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, Attorney J. As far as I know, Malampaya has an arrangement. 45% goes to Chevron, 45% goes to Shell, and the Philippines will only get 10%. No? So, how does that make of us? What chances have we should a joint exploration take place between China and the Philippines?
Yung 45-45-10 na yun is basically the ownership of the project. Okay, so ang equity ng Pilipinas is only 10%. We own only 10% of the whole contract. The 45% is owned by the operator Shell, and then another 45% by Chevron, no? Now, ganun kasi yung service contract system natin na and then also under the Constitution, if you consider it as a financial technical assistance agreement, that can be 100% owned. The project can be 100% owned. But ang paghahatian basically is the net, no? The net proceeds, the net profit from it. Yun yung dun ina-apply yung 60-40 formula. Okay, so like in the case of Malampaya, you have, say, on any given year, 100% production in oil, which is equivalent to so many dollars. you take out 70% as operators costs, no? Kasi yun yung cost of maintenance and project management and continuous extraction of oil, marketing, etc. So you're left with 30%. Yung 30% na yun ngayon, you apply yung incentives that we've conceded, etc. And then you end up with the final, kumbaga the profit amount. Yun ngayon ang hahatiin nyo, 60-40. Okay? 40% goes to Shell, to the consortium, and then the 60% goes to the Philippines. Okay? So that is how we've been implementing this provision. So I think the expectation is any joint development with China should also follow this arrangement, this model.
You have any idea as to how much the Philippines exposed or invested in Malampaya?
Actually, the entire project was bankrolled by Chevron
Really?
for 45%. And then tayo as owners, they gave us 10%. In fact, 5% lang yung unang binibigay. But I think Mr. Bumasang was able to negotiate for doubling it.
Really?
Yeah, so
So tubong nilugaw tayo, resources lang atin.
I don't know how you look at 10%, but that's 20 billion a year.
Pesos or dollars?
Pesos.
Pesos. Yes.
Kasi yun nga yung whole point ng service contract, walang gastos yung Pilipinas. Everything is borne by the contractor. So all the risks as well are borne by the contractor. So in this case, Malampaya, Shell spent $4 billion yata, $4.5 billion for the whole thing. We didn't spend anything, but we get 60% of the profit. Bale, yun yung idea. Of that 4.5 billion, 2 billion is the cost of the platform alone, no? Yung production platform. The rest is the pipeline. No? And then hindi pa kasama doon yung mga 3 gas plants that they had to set up in order to be able to use the gas.
To process the gas. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Melo, remember when Napoles was being questioned in the Senate? The proceeds from this was talked about. What is the story? Is it about the 20 billion?
Yeah, I remember the first pass sa Senate ng Malampaya scam, they call it. It's I think around 173 billion over the 8 years. Kasi when Pinoy came in, na-stop yung mismanagement na yun.
So there was mismanagement.
There was.
Yes.
Kasi yung under our laws, the profits from all of this oil exploration goes into a particular fund, no? So in this case, since we only have one big project, which is Malampaya, maliit lang sa Galok and all that. Much of that is basically from Malampaya, kaya tinawag din ng Malampaya Fund. But that fund can be used by the president for any energy-related project according to
Energy-related project. Okay.
So ang nangyari is that during the Arroyo administration, they were using it for other purposes. Okay. So there were allegations that it was used also for the elections. And then under Pinoy, that stopped. And the only item that they spent the fund on was for the purchase of the Hamilton class cutters ng Navy, which they justified as being used to protect the West Philippine Sea and Malampaya.
Okay. What chances have we that situations like that will never be repeated? Because they say if there's one thing we don't learn from is history.
Well, let me use the metaphor which I used in my interview yesterday. I said, corruption is a big tree. We are shaking the tree and some leaves are falling. You have not touched the trunk nor the roots. But we continue to shake the tree. And hopefully, at a later time, we will hit the trunk. And at a later time, we will pull out the roots. That's how deeply institutionalized corruption is. And well, Duterte has some good things that he wants to do, but he cannot be everywhere. Even his own people are perceived to be corrupt. But you try to call quadruple eight, and let me see what your experience is. Quadruple eight is you're supposed to report certain things. With the automated response there, You get so irritated, you'll just bang the telephone, you know. And yes.
And you get to buy a new telephone. That's business. Yes, please. Would you care to add?
Yeah. Your question is what are the chances of corruption happening
Yes.
again? No, similar things happening again. Truth is, the chances of them happening there again are still high because despite the Duterte administration coming in, no real substantial changes have yet been made in our legislation or in our procedures to address the loopholes and gaps through which this corruption happened before. So, the Malalampaya Fund is still the same law. No changes have been made there. So it's still a discretionary fund of the president practically. Yung joint development, the way the JMSU was negotiated before, that can still happen again in the same way with the current proposal for joint development. No? And in JMSU, what happened was you had under the table deals and side agreements in exchange for signing the undertaking. No? That can still happen today under this administration because there is nothing which prevents that. No?
Yeah, one excuse I had learned from doing a research on the Unocal Napocor Sweetheart contract was that Unocal, the Union Oil California, spent everything or a lot of money to harness geothermal in Tiwi, with the Philippines not spending a centavo. So Unocal had to get its own ROI. Now, in the Philippines, with a joint exploration, it appears that China has the capital. We don't have the capital. We don't have, but we have the resources. So what will that make of us?
I think we just really have to be wiser, and we really have to work hard and see to it that all of these things will not happen again. But persistence would pay.
Yeah. Basta walang finder's fees. No? Somewhere. That's another case. Anyway, let's look forward. One basic question is, will a joint exploration be possible at all? Pwede kayang mangyari ito between states, between China and the Philippines?
I think that's a legal thing.
Yeah. But as far as resources and exploration, nangyari na ito nun.
I think we're already doing it on the science and technology or engineering field. So sabi nga ni Ma'am kanina,
We have the skills.
it will be the scientists and the engineers who should be. So yung politics maybe or yung maybe
But we have the skills, right?
yeah, andyan na yung technology.
Hindi na tayo mabobola. Dahil alam na natin yun di ba?
Should be wiser.
Okay,
Should
okay.
be wise.
Yes. Professor,
Let us not repeat our mistakes. Nakita na natin yung lubak. Pag sumigi pa tayo, sobra na sayong tanga. No? So, iwasan mo na yung lubak. Kasi nalubak ka na eh. No? And you keep on repeating, Melo, we have the resources. For God's sake, gamitin naman natin yung utak natin. And China lang ba yung ibang bansa? There are many, many other countries who are willing to explore, extract, develop these resources. So let's open our minds to other offers. Even Russia is willing to do that. Andiyan lang yung Russia, no? Nasa north natin, hindi siya malayo, no? So to the extent that we expand states, people with whom we have all these conversations, to that extent, the power of that big giant in our neighborhood by the name of PROC will loom less and less. So, at the end, Melo, I'm guardedly optimistic. I can't be otherwise. Otherwise, we'll all commit collective suicide.
thank you. Yes, please.
Is joint development possible? It depends on what aspect you're looking at. If you're thinking about it only in pragmatic terms, of course it's possible. You can always cooperate with anyone you want. No, it's only a matter of sincerity and clear and a clear idea of what it is that you're cooperating on and how you're going to divide the benefits. Legally, you have some challenges, definitely. Kasi nga, as I mentioned, the current petroleum laws and regulations that we have, the constitution that we have, does not contemplate cooperation or joint development or cooperation with another state. It's only with a private entity.
Okay.
Hindi pareho yung level nila, di ba? Private entity will have to operate completely under our laws. If you're talking about state to state, that's a whole different ball game. And
Okay.
we simply do not have the prior legal framework ready for that. You still need to do that, prepare the legal framework before you go into it. If it's economically, well, we've been doing that commercially in many different aspects of activity, but there kasi the advantage there is that you have already an existing global framework, yung trade, WTO rules, etc., which allow your respective private sectors to be doing that cooperation, all sorts of joint cooperation activities that are profitable to both entities and then indirectly profitable or beneficial to both countries. Diba? Culturally, politically, that's probably something we need to ask. Kasi right now, we know that China is not exactly a popular country for our people. Diba? And if you go by trust ratings, it has a long way to go before it gets the trust and confidence of the people. No? How that translates into the political leadership's decisions and actions, again, we don't know na naman. No?
Okay.
So, marami
pang dapat
maraming
pag-aralan.
ayusin. But definitely, for it to succeed and for it to be sustainable, all of these different aspects have to go together. No? So, hindi pwedeng tatanggapin mo siya politically pero wala kang legal framework. Hindi pwedeng tatanggapin mo siya legally pero wala kang political support. Nor hindi mo rin siya pwedeng tanggapin politically, legally pero hindi naman economically attractive, diba? So
Okay.
all of
Yeah.
them have to be in line.
But in the course of things, and if you look at the empirical evidence, Jay, really, the success stories would be you start with low politics area. And then you hope that it will spill over into high politics because you would have planted the seeds of goodwill and friendship and the habits of cooperation. Habits of cooperation are very important. Oh, like among engineers, no? Among lawyers, among diplomats. And they're really something that you can fall back on. You know, hoy, tawagan mo si Ambassador Lozada. Remember, we were together in... All of these are human nature being as it is, they are really, gold mines.
Okay.
And we are banking on habits of cooperation. Let low politics prosper. We have time for that to spill over into high politics.
Okay, very well. So I'd like to thank our guests. This is one of the rare occasions when we had more guests than media, but they missed a lot. I'd like to thank Gabby, a new doctor of the environment, Atty. J, and of course Professor Carlos and Ambassador Lozada. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga nakasama rito sa ating Wednesday Roundtable at Lido. Have a nice time. Thank you very much.